Harbor Commission meeting for Monday, January 12th, 2025. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Commissioner Warwick?
Here.
Commissioner Falk?
Here.
Commissioner Collar?
Here.
Commissioner Krazan?
Here.
Commissioner Bauer?
Present.
Commissioner Carlson?
Here.
And Chair Abelman.
Here.
We have full attendance and we can conduct business.
Excellent.
Nice.
All right, let's salute the flag. Commissioner Curzon, will you lead us?
Sure. Please stand, your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Okay, we need to approve the order of agenda. Is there a motion to do so?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Like that stereo, very nice. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent, has been approved. Okay, where are we? Moving down to blue, are there any blue folder items?
Yes, we do. We have 3 items that are all related to item L1, which is the leasing overview presentation. In your backup documentation, you had a bunch of just kind of backup material. We're adding 3 more reports to that. It's kind of visitation statistics related to International Boardwalk, the harbor in general, and then the attendance or visitation spike during Beach Life Festival. So 3 separate documents. They came in after 3 p.m., so we didn't get a chance to circulate those, but we will email all of you tomorrow.
Excellent. Perfect. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, cool. Consent calendar. Item F1 and F2, is there a motion to approve items F1 and F2 approval for the affidavits posted in minutes of the Harbor Commission for January 12th and for just the minutes for December 8th? Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. Cruising right along here. Okay, item G, nothing there. Item H, here we go. Public participation on non-agenda items. This section is intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on this agenda for action. This section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes to address this commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Written requests, if any, will be considered first under this section. Are there any?
Yes, we have Maria Yesol. Come on up.
Good evening, Chair Appelman and Commissioners. Happy New Year. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. In tonight's agenda includes L1, the leasing overview of pier and harbor properties. I'd like to offer public comment that connects leasing strategy with the broader development pressures facing Redondo Beach.
This is an item that's on the agenda tonight.
Oh, okay, so I'll
wait until.
So let's, okay, then let me just go with one non-agenda then. Let me see. Sorry. You know, let me see. Non-agenda item. Okay, so King Harbor Commission non-agenda public comment. Okay, so good evening, Chair. Thank you for allowing me for public comment. I'm here tonight to speak briefly about branding and marketing. Specifically, how King Harbor is presented or unrepresented in the city's primary digital presence, including redondo.org and its mobile interface. Based on the city's own homepage and mobile experience, King Harbor appears fragmented and secondary, rather than positioned as one of Redondo Beach's defining civic and economic asset. On the main website, King Harbor content is buried under generic navigation labels like harbor updates, revitalization, rather than clearly elevate as a destination, an economic engine, and public asset. On mobile, which is how most visitors, tourists, and younger residents access information, the harbor identity is even less clear. This matters because branding is policy. What the city highlights communicates priorities to residents, visitors, investors, and leaseholders. King Harbor is a working harbor, a regional destination, a major revenue source, and a generational public asset. Yet the current branding does not reflect the importance. From a governance perspective, this raises key questions appropriate for King Harbor. I would just want to emphasize on that word, King. We need to use that more. Is King Harbor being marketed consistently and intentionally? Is the King Harbor treated as a core identity or a sidebar? Are branding and digital strategy aligned with leasing, economic development, and long-term stewardship goals? This is not about logos or colors. This is about clarity, hierarchy, I can't pronounce that word. Hierarchy, and respect for the asset. As development pressures increase citywide, clear King Harbor branding becomes even more critical. If we don't define King Harbor intentionally, others will define it for us.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There is no one on Zoom and no e-comments.
Thank you. Hi, Moon. Hi, we have no ex parte, we have no public hearings, no items continued from previous agendas. Item L, leasing overview.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. We have invited Brian Campbell, our leasing agent, to the meeting to kind of go over some of the vacancies, the type of uses out there, the visitation of the harbor. We try to do this quarterly for you guys to get a handle on what's happening out there from a commercial leasing standpoint. One of your purviews as a harbor commissioner is to provide guidance to us as we seek out to reduce vacancies in new businesses. So this is your opportunity to ask any questions about existing leases, how the process works, and the breakdown of the types of uses we have out there. And if you have any guidance for us, we will certainly take it. So I'm going to introduce Brian Campbell to kind of walk us through the presentation, and then we're available for any comments and questions that you may have.
Thanks, Greg. Chairman, Commissioners, thanks for the invitation again to come tonight to talk about my favorite subject, which is leasing. So what I've got here is a number of different reports. It's a lot of pages, but I wanted to start from a macro standpoint, which is the Southern California market, and then hone it down to the South Bay retail, South Bay office, then specifically the most recent leasing report for January for Pier Plaza, which is our office space, and then take a look at some traffic and that we're seeing in International Boardwalk, using some of our software from Placer AI, do some comparisons year over year. And then also I ran some numbers on Beach Life Festival, what happens during that first week of May each year. And it's kind of interesting to see how that dynamic is changing over time with the number of people they're bringing, and also the impact it's having on the other retail tenants in the area. In other words, is it a net bonus for them having Beach Life happening, or is it really cannibalizing away from other business? And you'll see a little bit later on, 2024, it didn't look like it was helping our existing retail tenants down at International Boardwalk, but I think in 2025, it did. So it's interesting just to understand those dynamics. It helps us from a leasing standpoint and also from the city from a policy standpoint. They set the policy and then we implement that in, as it impacts leasing. So I'm going to go through all of these reports sequentially. If you have any questions, stop me, but I'll gradually talk through all these reports. Then I'll open it up for questions and answers, and I'm here as long as you need. So the first report is Southern California, the retail market. If you can read these numbers, I don't have a zoom button on this, but effectively what it is showing is the different types of vacancy rates in the different types of retail centers that are available out there. Everything from malls on the upside to just general local centers. From a leasing standpoint, Southern California is losing tenants. It's losing population. The leasing is probably as bad as it's been since just a couple of years after the financial crisis back 2011, 2012. Tenants across the board, now this is nationally, but in particular, Southern California, the Los Angeles area is probably the worst area in the country for retail right now. It's just bleak. It's a combination of, lack of housing, the expense of housing, taxes, expenses. It's just, everything is conspiring, against us. You got Hollywood. Hollywood's losing a lot of business. That's 20% of the overall economic power in Southern California. So that there's national policies that are in place which are not helping us out. But this number here, and all this is available to you, obviously online, and we have hard copies if you want to follow up on it later. But you can see where the net absorption has, ever since COVID, has just gone down, down, down. There's a little bit of a spike in the fourth quarter. A lot of that is from the West Harbor project down in San Pedro. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. But they brought in about 300,000 square feet or so of space. They're about 80% leased. So a lot of the absorption in Southern California really happened just right down there. So it skews the numbers a bit. But you can see what the forecast is going forward. And it is just negative absorption, which means we're losing more tenants than we're gaining, or tenants are downsizing, or take Starbucks, for example, shutting down a certain number of their stores across the board. So rents, same thing here. The vertical line right to the left of the word forecast right there is where we are right now. You can see where rents across the board have been dropping for a number of years. They're expected to continue to drop throughout most of 2026. And then they think we might start seeing an increase back up through 2028, 2029. But if you draw a horizontal line across where, say, mid-2028 back to where it was in mid-2021, I mean, that's 8 years. We might get rents back to where they were before. Okay, so in the meantime, for landlords, their expenses keep going up. Insurance keeps going up, repairs keep going up. I mean, roof repair, all that sort of stuff just keeps coming up, but the rents just aren't there. So there's pressure on landlords, there's pressure on tenants. The economy, we just talked about that. I mean, you can read that for yourself. This goes into a little bit more detail of what you can just read in the local newspapers about the direction of our economy. It's hard. There's some linear numbers right there where Los Angeles compares to the United States as far as employment by industry in thousands. And all those red numbers is loss of jobs. There's the unemployment rate there. You can see where California is in the gold. Our unemployment rate really spiked during COVID because of the shutdowns, and it just hasn't caught up with where the rest of the country is, and it's not expected to for quite some time, for probably another 5 years or so. So here's an interesting dynamic. Okay, median household income, the forecast is that it's going to continue to go up. But if you take a look at the graph right below that, population growth, it's going down. So what's happening here, what we think, without doing real in-depth drilling in on the economics here, what we think is happening is that a lot of middle-income people are leaving. They're leaving the state. And who's left are business owners, highly paid professionals. Also, as those years go by, people are in their careers a little bit longer. They tend to make more and more money. So that median income is going up while the population is going down. That's not healthy for general retail either, is when you start losing a lot of that middle class. Now, some of that middle class is moving up to the upper class, over those years. But those numbers in general are not good from a real estate perspective. All right, so I'm going to segue down to the Beach Cities, Palos Verdes area. The only reason we included Palos Verdes is that's just where CoStar, includes them. I mean, I wish they would just do a Beach Cities because it's really a completely different market. But these are the numbers that we've got. So this is the most recent fourth quarter Beach Cities retail report. And you can see up at the top of the revenue, okay, the red number, 66.8 thousand square feet, that's a negative absorption, okay? In a healthy market, you've always got positive absorption. We're going in the other direction. Now, vacancy rates are not bad, 5.6%, but the asking rental rate growth, what the typical historical rental rate growth, which is about 1.5% per year, it's actually a -2. So again, that's really a negative sign. So from a leasing standpoint, you can see in more detail here, the net absorption and net deliveries and vacancies. Deliveries is new buildings being brought back to market, or older buildings that have been gutted and been rehabbed. So West Harbor, again, skewed these numbers so that it shows more net absorption than really has happened. But on the bottom vacancy rate graph, where you can see where malls took a huge hit during COVID, but have come back very strong, whereas every other category of retail, neighborhood center, just a general retail story, power center, strip center, et cetera, has just plateaued out at about 5%. So here's the availability rate, and it's just, that means how much space has been available, how much has been leased up. So you can see, except for the gold colored line, which is malls, which have had the most dramatic down and then recovery, everything else is just flat. So again, this follows very closely the Southern California market asking rent growth. It's just going down. Here's the market asking rent per square foot has been going down, except for malls down at the bottom, because they've seen the most dramatic recovery. But for the last year, rents have generally been going down. Now, if I could just skip down to where we are, we have no vacancy in our retail right now. So both Fisherman's Wharf, International Boardwalk, the Marine over there with Captain Kidd's, California Surf Club, et cetera, we have no vacancy right now. The only vacancies we have is in some of our office space at Pier Plaza. So our rents are pegged with a 3% annual increase, our retail rents. So our rents are going up. Our vacancy is better than it was, than it is generally. Some people would suggest that we should raise our rents then. If we're full, then maybe we're not charging enough. What I would say is that municipally owned real estate should be looked at differently than private owned real estate or institutional real estate. And the reason why, you're interested in cash flow. You're interested in cash flow, foot traffic, the vibe, the environment that's down there. Why private landlords, institutional landlords tolerate a certain amount of vacancy is because that's how they push rental rates up. They're going to suffer a certain amount of vacancy, but that's how they value their properties. That's how they go out and refinance. That's how they sell them based on what their rental rates are. They'll tolerate 5, 7, 8, 9, 10%, vacancy rate if they can squeeze those numbers up higher. That's not what you're trying to do here. So that's why we're happy it's 100% leased. And all of our leases, as I said before, have got a baked in 3% annual increase on them. So Redondo Beach from a retail standpoint is doing pretty good. I'll talk about a little bit later about what my thoughts are as far as the future rental rates and perhaps how we ought to be shifting our focus a little bit from a marketing standpoint. All right, here's an office submarket report, same area, Beach Cities, Palos Verdes. This is the only place where we have vacancy. Pier Plaza's got about 67,000 square feet of space or so, and we've got about 7,000 square feet or so of vacancy. We're about 89% leased. We've lost some tenants, we've gained some tenants. We had 8 new tenants this last year that we were able to get through the city. Some are expanding and some are new. We've got a new one that's coming up next month for one of our smaller vacant spaces. It's an insurance agency. So if you go through the office market, it's net absorption is down. Asking rental rates are a little bit better. Vacancy rate is higher. Part of that is because of that dynamic I just talked about, is that office owners typically will tolerate a higher vacancy rate because that's how they keep their values pushed up. So it's 9%, we're at 11%, we're lagging a little bit on that. You can take a look at the net absorption has been bad. The vacancy rate on the bottom graph there is for the Beach Cities, Palos Verdes market area for 4- and 5-star buildings. These are brand new office buildings, like what you might see over there on Hawthorne Boulevard or some of the newer ones being built, along Pacific Coast Highway. We're not a 4- or 5-star project. We're probably a 2+ star or so. And you'll see that graph down. I think I missed that page. But let me skip forward to this. This is the market annual rent growth. You can see it's slightly better than retail. The forecast is slightly better than retail. So office doesn't look quite as bad for the South Bay area. Now, if you look at other parts of Los Angeles, downtown in particular, it's a disaster. I mean, it's 20+% vacancy rate. You're seeing high-rise buildings being foreclosed on. I mean, we haven't seen anything like that since probably at one point in the late 1980s, Japanese institutional owners owned over 50% of all of downtown LA. And then that collapsed when the Japanese economy went down and has only recently started to recover, 30 some years later. But downtown LA is bad right now. So where we would like to see, this coming year is lease up a little bit more of our vacant space down there at Pier Plaza. It's an older project, needs a lot of work, had a lot of roof leaks, in this last storm. The cash flow is basically covering the expenses down there, but we need to do that because if you have a vacant project, all sorts of bad things are going to start happening. I mean, you're going to have an uptick in vandalism. You're going to have, it's going to become a de facto shelter for homeless folks, crime, et cetera. Just bad things happen from that. So keeping tenants like Jariat Technology, our best and biggest tenant down there, happy is a great thing. Having Savoir-Faire, for example, down there is a great thing as far as increasing the vibe and the usability and foot traffic of people after they pick their kids up and walk around down in the pier and eat or go sightseeing. So these numbers, all you got to do is just look at the red on here and just see the direction that things have been going since 2014 and where they're going. All right, here's the page I was looking for. So look at the bottom graph here, the 1- and 2-star rent and vacancy. That's more where Pier Plaza would probably fit in. So you could see that this class of building has been struggling for quite some time. Okay, we think it'll improve over the next couple of years, but again, it's gonna require a continuing investment in keeping that property up and and suitable for leasing. And if I could just interject something real quick, unless you geek out on this stuff like I do, this is just going to make your eyes roll up, okay? But for some of you that find little bits and pieces of this that you're interested in, that's where the questions and answers and things like that I could drill into a little bit more. So I apologize a little bit for the dryness of running through all these numbers, but I think it's good to have an idea of the big picture and how we fit into it. Okay, so this is the latest monthly leaser report just for Pier Plaza. So this is just our office space. So you all know where Pier Plaza is. That picture was taken on Friday with our drone. So the vacancies at Pier Plaza, you can see Fisherman's Wharf completely leased, International Boardwalk completely leased, former Fun Factory, that's not technically available right now. So we don't consider that as part of our real vacancy. We're already talking to some people that might be interested in that. The marina, think Captain Kidd's, California Surf Club, the Cantina, that's 100% leased. So you can see where our real vacancies are. It's in that second line, Pier Plaza, 89%. We've got just over 7,000 square feet available. And we're optimistic we'll get a good chunk of that leased, over the next 6 months or so. So again, this is a reversal of those numbers, just showing the actual vacancies, 0%, 11%. Former Fun Factory obviously is available, Marina 0%. So across all properties, we've got 36,937 square feet of technically available space, but 29,000 feet of that is the former Fun Factory space, which I think will be a great location once the work that's done that needs to be done in the parking garage above it, and we get the right tenant that's in there. So this is a little snapshot as to where we stand vis-a-vis tenants that are on month-to-month leases and also upcoming lease expirations. I didn't get a chance to take a look at these numbers from a couple of years ago, but I recall the total amount of square feet at one point that was month to month was over 50%. That's dangerous from a landlord when you've got over half your tenants on month-to-month leases, because if something unexpected happens to their business or to their market, and COVID, and they're shut down, they're 30 days away from being able to cancel their lease. That's not good for owners. So our goal has been to reduce those month-to-month tenants and have them on longer-term leases. And we've made great progress on that. So we've only got 27% of our space still on month-to-month vacancies. I think we'll probably get that down into the teens over the next 6 months or so. And then upcoming lease expirations, this year we've got a few. 2027, we've got some more, so we always reach out to those tenants well in advance of those lease expirations, and find out what their intentions are.
So that doesn't include the big leases expiring.
The master leaseholds.
That's outside the area.
That's outside his area,
Yeah.
correct.
Got it. Thanks.
So Port Royal, Basin 1, both outside. Portofino, both outside. He's Pier Plaza, Fisherman's Wharf, International Boardwalk, and then Moldy.
That's what I thought, just checking. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry.
Now, we track all those. I mean, we pay attention to them, but that's correct. We're not involved in those master leases. And okay, so here I'm drilling into the overall Redondo Beach harbor area. Okay, there's the overlay. This is using a software program called Placer AI. I think we are probably the only ones in the area that have this. I know the Hermosa Beach Chamber of Commerce bought it about a year or so ago and then didn't renew it. It was too expensive. We were an early adopter with the company. We made an effort to talk to them about it, and so we were able to get in on a pretty good deal. And so it's very valuable information, but it's expensive for most people to get. So we've got that. periodically, when the city needs data or some numbers run, we can run that. I know I did one for you with that bar over on Aviation, I think, some time ago. Anyway, we've got that capability. It doesn't cost the city anything, and we can run those numbers. So this is the overlay that I wanted to take a look at year over year. This is 2024 foot traffic versus 2025 foot traffic. So this is a little bit hard to read, but if you look at the visit year over year, just for International Boardwalk, it's up a couple of percent. Year over 2 years, it's up a little bit. Here's a little bit better graph. Now the bar graph is 2024, 2025, and a gradual growth. Now you can see, it looks like it's April 2000, looks like it's April, but it's actually the first week of May. That very large spike is Beach Life Festival. So you can see where they definitely brought in a lot more people than what were typically coming the first week of May. This right here shows you, it's a heat map showing where everybody comes from. And what's interesting is, I mean, obviously the highest number of people is going to be in the immediate area, but also there's a lot of people from the valley. There's a lot of people from, up past the downtown area, and look at the numbers coming from San Diego. I mean, it's pretty interesting to see that people will travel, all that distance and end up down on International Boardwalk. So we are a destination for a certain number of people out there. And that's just drive time. That's just to give you an idea of how long it takes to drive to International Boardwalk from various parts of Southern California. And here's some demographic information. That'll show you the average household income, the median household income. It's pretty good numbers compared to the rest of Southern California. I mean, just the area in general with its proliferation of high tech and higher end housing, for example, just attracts and retains, a lot of people that have got a higher median income than what you typically see across the rest of Southern California. So we're in, on paper, a good market. So that's good for the city's retail business, overall retail business. From a real estate standpoint, it's good for us also. It means opportunity. So this is the hourly visits, which is interesting. What we're looking for on this, when we look at a specific tenant, for example, we like to see what their typical hourly visits are. We don't want to have all of our tenants all having their customers at the same time. We like to spread that out a bit. Now, you're always going to see more people coming on the weekends. You're always going to see more people in the afternoons, typically on that. But the more we can flatten out those hours that people are there is a good, healthy sign for what we're trying to do. From a leasing standpoint, it's also a healthy sign for our tenants. And this is days of the week. This is pretty obvious. I actually thought Sunday might be higher than Saturday, but this is just where those numbers fall. Okay, this next analysis that we ran on Placer is International Boardwalk during the first week of May through May 10th, which is Beach Life for 2024 and 2025. And it's interesting to see how these numbers run. Again, there's the overlay, just International Boardwalk. And we wanted to see the dynamic that Beach Life Festival had on International Boardwalk. Now, we could squeeze this down and take a look at even specific tenants if we need to. But I just wanted to take a look at overall International Boardwalk. And blue is 2025, red is 2024. So you can see the dynamic was substantial in just pure number of people. The visit frequency, pretty close to the same. Average dwell time, pretty much the same. Visits year over year, big increase. Year over 2 years, big increase. So you could draw from this, this basic macro data, that beach life is a good thing. Okay, it's bringing people down here that probably wouldn't have come otherwise. And a fair amount of that is spilling over into our tenants. Now, I talked to the tenants down there, and I'm hearing slightly different stories from them. If you're a restaurant or a bar, for example, you see a big spike when beach life happens. If you're selling T-shirts or trinkets or something like that, I'm hearing from tenants that they see a drop off in business. And I guess that makes sense. But overall, from a net, it appears that it's a positive thing that they are bringing to the table. I talked earlier about how we want to smooth that bar out as far as what days of the week people are coming, and beach life is a nice overlay on that. And we think it brings in new people, and we also think it helps spread out the business over more days and more hours of the day. All right, so here's the visitor trend. Again, blue is last year, 2025. Red is the year before. And the numbers across the bottom is the date. So it's May 1st, 2nd, all the way through the 10th. And last year, the numbers dropped off on the 4th, but then picked up dramatically, as you can see the blue line does, as time went on in that week when Beach Life Festival was happening. This is a great graph. This tracks, that center circle is International Boardwalk. This tracks where people are coming from before they get to International Boardwalk and where they go afterwards. And you could drill into even more detail on this. Now, we don't have this data, but the government does. We voluntarily provide it all with our phones, and they can drill into, we can't, but they can drill into where you live, how many kids you got, how much money you make, what kind of car you drive, who your best friends are, who you talk to. I mean, and we surrender this for the greater good, I hope, and can only hope. But this is great data here because you can see where people are coming from. Seaside Lagoon, they're coming to International Boardwalk, fair number of them. Most of them are coming straight from home. Now, people are going, almost a quarter of them are going straight home after they're done with International Boardwalk. But a bunch are going back to Seaside Lagoon. Well, Seaside Lagoon, think Beach Life Festival. And then you can see the ones that are staying at the hotel. They're coming over from the hotel, they're going back to the hotel. So great data. And again, this is just surface level stuff. We could really drill further into this, just takes a little bit more time. Okay, this is 2024, so you could scroll back and forth. So this is last year. This is the year before, 2024. Similar numbers. Kincaid's, there's an interesting dynamic that we saw is there's a lot of people that start at Kincaid's on some other data that we've run, and then they end up over at Barley Vibes. And conversely, they'll start out at Barley Vibes, and then they'll end up having dinner over at Kincaid's. Do you know where the most frequented department store is that people that come to International Boardwalk like to shop at?
No.
Target. That's their favorite place. I could tell you which fast food restaurant that most people prefer that come down to International Boardwalk. So it's great data. And I'm just presenting this because I'd like to have you get some ideas as you go through all of your discussions and deliberations and look at different things. If you know that we've got this capability, you can always reach out through the Harvard Economic Development Department, and we'll do our best to be able to provide that to you. I think it just will help with better policy analysis and decisions. So here's daily visits. You can see where last year in the blue during Beach Life was much higher than the year before. So I think Chair Abelman, we were talking before the meeting started, 2024 during Beach Life, it looked like it hurt our overall retail tenants, but then that turned around in 2025. So the dynamic changed there. I don't know if it was just more people or what the other dynamic was. We didn't drill down that deep for the purposes of this presentation. And then there's hourly visits. So you can see during the afternoon hours from 12 to 4 or 5 p.m. or so, a lot more people were there during Beach Life than there were the year before. Okay, here's the favorite places that a lot of those people like to go to. Del Amo Fashion Center, R10 Social House, Veterans Park. They may park over there or just throw a blanket down or something like that. Captain Kidd's. Some of them are coming to Building 100 at Fisherman's Wharf. That's Bob Resnick's project. And that's some of the favorite places. That's 2025 favorite places that people like to go to. That frequent international boardwalk, that's the IBW at the top. This is the year before, 2024. So we could see how people change their habits as the dynamic down in the harbor changes. So Beach Life comes along, that obviously was a big change in the dynamic, or other tenants. When we ultimately get the Fun Factory leased, we're going to see a big change in dynamics down there also. I think we'll see a huge uptick in number of people coming. I think it's really going to spill over and benefit the rest of our businesses down there who pay a percentage of their rent to the city. So the sooner we can get that done, the better, obviously. Okay, and then the last report that I've got here is the Beach Life 2025 overview. So that's the overlay. That's roughly Seaside Lagoon, California Surf Club, and where Beach Life was. And you can take a look at what their average dwell time is compared to International Boardwalk. International Boardwalk was 71, 72 minutes. This is 179, almost 3 hours. And again, that's that healthy dynamic that if you can get people to stick around a lot more, number one, they'll become more familiar with the harbor. They'll become more familiar with everybody else that's down there besides just the concert that they're going to. They'll be more familiar with the hotels, with the rest of the retail. It's all a healthy thing. And again, the numbers speak for themselves. There's the number of people that went to Beach Life in that overlay area versus the rest of that quarter. So this is a quarterly number, April through June 2025. And all those little spikes that look like your heart rate monitor, that's over the weekends. But Beach Life just dwarfed it all as far as bringing the number of people down to that particular part of the harbor. Again, this is just a drive time overlay. I mean, we're really pretty close to a good chunk of the South Bay. I don't think a lot of people realize that 15 minutes away, you're out, you're pushing the 110 freeway. So we really got a large market to pull from. As we're out talking to big potential tenants for the former Fun Factory space, this sort of data they're going to want to look at. They're going to want to see, are we worth a 10-minute drive? Are we worth a 15-minute drive? What's the demographics out there in those areas? Can we make our numbers work? Well, we can help them with that decision.
So a question, if I read this correctly, say the vast majority of people attending Beach Life are within this 15-mile or 15-minute drive time. Is that what you're saying?
You can look at it that way. So this is a drive time map just to Beach Life. Yeah, you're right. So that's their 15-minute market. Now, I've got other heat maps that show you where specifically people are coming from for Beach Life as compared to where people are coming from just for International Boardwalk. And you could see a definite change in that heat map as to the demographic and that's coming to Beach Life versus our typical demographic that's coming to International Boardwalk. And you'll see Beach Life pulls a lot more people from El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach than perhaps International Boardwalk does. So again, we see that as a healthy sign, so long as they're not cannibalizing from our other existing businesses down there. And that's just from a pure traffic standpoint. That's not speaking from an economic contractual standpoint, whatever that is, between Beach Life and the city. So just from a pure demographic standpoint, they are definitely pulling in people that make a significantly higher median income. We know their houses are worth $300,000 to $400,000 more per house than the average International Boardwalk person. So a ton of data that you can use a lot of different ways. So there's some of the demographic, and if you want, I'm not going to do it here, but if you wanted to scroll back and take a look at the household median income for Beach Life versus International Boardwalk, you'll see Beach Life is noticeably higher. And that's a good thing. That's just hourly visits. That's just days of the week. How many people are coming? And that's it. So I don't know how long that took. I just wanted to give you a big overlay. We love this kind of stuff. That's why we do it. And hopefully it'll give you some ideas as to what's going on in the market, how we see the market, and perhaps give you some ideas as to how you can utilize some of the tools that we have at the city's disposal.
Yeah, if I could just interject a little bit, this is a lot of the data that we can show prospective business owners when they approach someone like Brian and say, hey, I think I might be interested, not sure. We have an RFP out right now for the Fun Factory. This is very applicable data for them to show just how many people do come down to the waterfront for visitation, how far away they come. All this information is good to attract that big time developer. He alluded to the Fun Factory not being in his vacancy rate, and it's because right now it has to remain vacant so that we can do work on the parking structure above. That work has started as of last week. I just alluded to an RFP to attract a new business. That's underway right now through Larry Cosmont. He's looking for brokers, he's looking for businesses, he's looking for developers. What we're looking for really is a family-friendly entertainment venue, not necessarily a restaurant or a retail store. Those two things could be a component of the entertainment, but just something a little larger, something a little different. You'll notice the Joe's Crab Shack site isn't on here, even though that's a part of MOLD. We are in deep negotiations with Marine Mammal Care Center at this point. That's likely the direction that is going towards, which is more of a rehabilitation center for sea lions. So if you have any questions for Brian about next steps, who we're going after, diversity of uses, now's the time. If you had any questions about the data that he just presented, now's the time as well.
You mentioned that the rates have a bump of 3%, but in my experience, that's just to cover inflation, and inflation has probably been steeper than that.
Oh, I'm sure it is on it. The 3% annual bump on all of our leases that we're doing is for retail. It's on the base rent. What we hope is that the percentage rent will dwarf that. So it's either the percentage rent or the base rent, whichever is higher.
These are all triple net leases, for the most part.
I call them modified triple net on it because taxes, for example, get billed directly to the tenants through the county because municipally owned real estate does not pay taxes. So the taxes are not built into the rental rates, for example, that the office tenants pay. They get that about a year after they move in or so. It's called a possessory use tax, and they're billed directly on it. So I call it a modified triple net because there's the sanitation district, there's some other services that the city provides to those tenants down there. They get billed separately for that. So they don't, it's not as simple as they just pay for their electricity, their water, things like this. There's other things that they pay for in addition to their base rent. Now, since we're on this topic, we've got some tenants that only pay their base rent because they just don't sell enough in order for that percentage rent to be higher than that. And what my plan is as we get those spaces back, is to replace them, look very closely at future tenants that are going to be paying the percentage rent instead of just the base rent. I would like to raise the base rent up quite a bit from where it is right now to more closely match what the Riviera is getting or Hermosa Beach. I mean, we don't want to be that high because we'll price ourselves out of the market, but we want to be able to move up with that. But we're looking closely at people's gross sales and prior experience that they've got. You know, a general rule of thumb that you want to see for retail, at least in the South Bay, is about $1,000 of sales per square foot. So if you got 1,000 square foot space, little retail store, you'd like to see them making about $1 million in gross sales or so. If they're paying an 8 to 10% percentage rent on that, then you know the city gets $80,000 to $100,000. If they're only paying $2.50 per square foot on their base rent, okay, it's a fraction of that. So you can see that the delta is pretty wide there. We've got great tenants that consistently, who have never just paid their base rent. They're always paying percentage rent. So we want to shift away. Now that we got full occupancy, we want to shift more towards selective, really high quality tenants in the future, rather than somebody who is financially secure, that can run a business. I mean, we want to take a look at their numbers. And we also want that base rent to be higher. So if they do miss their numbers, the city sees more income on it. Now, we're a little bit unique because as you can see from the rest of the market, rents are going down, but we're on the water. Now, we don't have a brand new center down there. International Boardwalk used to be boat storage forever. Nobody seems to know when that actually started shifting over back around World War II or something like this, where somebody put in the first retail space down there from boat storage, and then it just grew. And that's what it is now. So, you know, we don't have a purpose-built retail strip down there on International Boardwalk. It's all been modified over the years, but it's right on the water. And that's a unique spot for us to be in. And I think we can capitalize on that going forward.
You had mentioned that the vacancy rate there right now the month-to-month tenants are about just over 30%, and you're hoping to get that down into the teens?
Yes.
Okay. Historically, is there a reason that you've seen more month-to-month than you would have liked to? Is that is that by design, or was that?
CenterCal litigation.
Okay.
So this dates way back to CenterCal, the litigation. Until that was solved, we weren't able to do long-term leases because potentially, if the case didn't work out the way it did, had a happy ending for the city. But if it didn't end up that way, CenterCal would have gotten those properties back. City didn't want to be in a position where they were doing leases on property that they ended up not owning. So the decision was made to just really take care of those tenants and not lose them, and just let them drift into month to month. Now,
makes sense.
As we got more comfortable with ultimately how the CenterCal litigation was going to work out, and we were able to start doing leases again, COVID came. And it was very difficult for a lot of our tenants, because of the shutdowns, to commit to new long-term leases when they're not even open. And so they hung in there. And the city worked very hard to work with our tenants down there that couldn't pay the rent during the shutdowns. And so what they did is that they allowed that rent just to accumulate. And then once they were able to open back up, to work it into new leases or payment plans. And I think in every one except maybe one example of a tenant, city's gotten back 100 cents on the dollar. So I think that good faith that the city really stretched and helped tenants out really paid off in loyalty from a lot of them. So long answer to your question about why are so many month to month. We're gradually working through that, but we're making great progress.
Commissioner Falk.
I think
You did a deep dive on beach life. Just curious if you've looked at the data to see impacts of other, like either weekly events or monthly things like, do we see a spike in International Boardwalk and other areas when there's like the car show or the farmer's market or some big, private thing that's going on at the Seaside Lagoon or other Lobster Fest, those kinds of things? Does it draw people?
Absolutely
not
can
looked
pull
at
that down. We can pull data from as recently as 3 to 4 days ago. Okay, that's all it takes for that data to be able to register in the database. So we can do it by the day. So we could take a look at a specific event and the size that we can hone this down to is 5,000 square feet. And so you give us a 5,000 square foot parameter, or maybe the business is already 5,000 square feet, like Beach Life Festival, Beach Life, California Surf Club. We could drop the geolocation data right on their footprint and take a look at how they did on a particular day for a particular event and compare that to any other day or any other year on that particular day.
To your point, Commissioner Krazan, I think a good one might be this weekend with the In-N-Out. I don't know what they're calling it, but it's essentially a fundraiser for human trafficking. It's a really big event that's taking all of Seaside Lagoon and that parking lot footprint that Beach Life typically utilizes. I think attendance isn't going to be quite 30,000 people, but it'd be a good, barometer to compare against Beach Life.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see those exact numbers. We'll see where they came from. We'll see what their demographic is. I mean, just about any macro data you want to know about who goes to that, we'll be able to provide.
Yeah, and I'm not thinking to compare with Beach Life, but I just wonder what it might tell us about even just like a movement that we're trying to do with the amenities plan. I don't know.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and see how it affects the International Boardwalk, for example, or Fisherman's Wharf, for example, or Old Tony's. I mean, you could actually see, hey, when Beach Life is going on or the In-N-Out event that's going on, how did that impact Old Tony's? So, I mean, all of that out there, it gives us ideas all the time. Yeah, I mean, when we take a look at the data and we're dealing with different people and different issues that we're trying to solve. And so we're finding new ways to use this all the time.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, I got another thing. So currently, all of the existing leases have a 3% bump per year, right? They all do?
Yeah, in the office leases is really where we see the benefit of that, because they don't pay the percentage rent, they just pay their base rent. And so while overall the market is seeing pretty flat on rental rates, we're seeing an actual increase on that. We were able to implement that, I think it was back pre-COVID, and we just put it in place and it is stuck.
And relative to inflation, I guess that's about, I've seen a number of leases that actually track inflation, right? That the bump actually happens, that is the LA cost of living index. But it's something to look at anyway. I don't know how it would track, but.
We started doing it on a CPI, but then the pushback that we got is that people wanted to put a cap on the CPI, and then we wanted to put a bottom on it. It's going to be CPI, but no less than 2%, or people would say, okay, but it's no more than 5%. So that was one issue that we got. And then the other issue is, it's just calculating it. And in the Southern California, MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area, is that really a good measure to price your office space on down on Pier Plaza? So it's, you could tie it to the cost of beef, okay? I mean, so there was a lot of pushback as to why pick that number, and then just calculating it. A lot of these tenants are small tenants, and they just don't want to get into the details of calculating this. So taking it full circle, that's why we just went back to 3% across the board. Let's keep it simple for our customers and easy to calculate.
And it's predictable, which is a nice thing.
Yeah.
What is, like at Pier Plaza, what's the average rent per square foot there, dollar per square foot? right now.
For new leases, we're getting 250 to 275 per square foot, depending on the location and the view.
Okay.
Now, that does not include the taxes. So they get separately billed by the county on top of their rent for the taxes. That's generally about an extra 15 cents a square foot or so. So if you're paying 275 a square foot to the city, add another 15 cents, and that's really what it's costing the tenant.
And I know this is just a wild number. What's the average LA? Because that number seems low to me, but maybe, what is the average?
It is low because we give hardly any tenant improvement dollars.
Right.
Okay, you go to, I mean, I did a lease not that long ago up in El Segundo for another client. And the break even on the cash flow, our break even, we like to have break even to the city where it's a net positive within just a few months. This was over 2 years before the break even was for an institutional owner up in El Segundo, because they were having to, the rental rate was much higher. It was like $36 a square foot or so, but they're giving $100 per square foot in tenant improvement allowance because it just costs that much. So you run those numbers in, and then you start paying all the other professionals involved in it, and you have a 5-year lease. Some of these landlords are not seeing real cash flow for 2.5 years. That's all. They'll also give free rent also, and the purpose of free rent is so they can get a higher rental rate, which increases the value of their property. So when they're selling it, or they may have loan covenants with whoever's got the debt on that property, which doesn't allow them to lease space for less than a certain amount. So they have to give free rent, or they've got to really bump up the tenant improvement dollars to make the space more palatable. And a lot of these tenants, for unused tenant improvement dollars, they can apply that towards rent. So it's like paying them to move in.
And have we ever done that instead of for tenant improvement, allowed it free rent, right? So 3 months, 6 months free rent for when they sign the lease.
We've never done that much. On occasion, we will give a month or two, or we might do a couple of half months or something like this. Our goal has always been to get the net cash flow to the city coming in as soon as possible and reduce risk. So if you give somebody 2 months free rent, okay, well, if a black swan event happens like COVID again, during that 2 months and they go out of business, you're just out. If you spread that 2 months free rent into maybe a half month on the first month, half month at the 6th month, half month at the 13th. So we try to reduce risk and increase cash flow, to the city as soon as possible.
Right, and I just bring that up because what is the average rent per square foot, dollars per square foot in, say, in office space in, I don't know, some localized area here that could be compared to what, like you said, it's class 2 or something. So what is that? What do you know about that number?
It's probably the same, or in some cases less than what we're quoting,
really?
or than what we're getting.
Okay.
And again, it's tough to compare, apples to apples because of the tenant improvement dollars, because of the free rent.
Right. I'm just wondering because I mean you're signing like a 5-year lease or 10-year lease or something at the time. So then if you could get higher rent with a better tenant improvement, and I'm going to wrap around to something completely different as long as we're going here, which is balance sheets. So what I don't get, so like when the city makes money here, where does that money go? It isn't a separate bank account, right? It's not.
Goes into uplands and tidelands.
It goes to uplands and tidelands. So there's so I'd be interested into the balance sheet, like every month, what how much money we're making basically on this and how much we're saving and how much money is available for things like tenant improvement. Just
I don't see those numbers because I'm not on the property management side. I mean, we work side by side with them down there, but we don't get involved with where the rent actually goes. But I can tell you the repairs are extensive down there, as the harbor department knows. And, I mean, ideally, since the city's going to own this property for some time, ideally, you'd be able to pull out a couple of $1 million and redo all of the roofs instead of patching them as needed, like we're doing right now. But that's in a perfect scenario on it. So what the property management does is they do the overall repairs, like painting and patching the leaks and things like that, repairing air conditioners when they need to do it. So I don't know how much of a capital improvement fund that they've got. I know they've got reserves, set aside for real emergencies. But I know this last rainstorm that we had, it was dreadful. I mean, I had a big leak just in my office. The buildings are old.
Yeah. I mean, that's the real key thing is how much money are we making on that down there? And how much money do we have socked away to build?
It really depends on location. When we get our reports, there's a report for just Pier Plaza, and then there's a report for the master leaseholders, and there's one for Fisherman's Wharf, and there's one for International Boardwalk. And there's the separate buildings that we have on the marina. So it's really everything together in one spreadsheet. So it really differs by location.
And I think to answer,
All public record.
I think to answer your question is Fisherman's Wharf, think Old Tony's out there, okay, nice cash flow. Okay, you take a look at International Boardwalk, real estate home run. City bought that master lease out, I think, for $3 million or so. You could probably flip that for $15 million right now if you wanted to go into the real estate business on it. So nice cash flow down there. Pier Plaza, it's a 40-year-old wood structure building that never should have used the materials that they used to originally build it with the wood right up there in the ocean with the wind. And it just takes a lot of repairs.
But to your point, if you want to see anything, any of you, in terms of what comes in, it's all public record. Just send us an email or give us a call, and we can pull the records for you.
That'd be great.
And also, if you ever want to actually take a look at what we do on a day-to-day basis, I mean, I office down there with the property management people. You could just swing by. I mean, anytime during the day. I mean, a phone call would be great, but anytime during the day, or if you happen to be down there at Savoir Fair or whatever, you are welcome to come in and we'll show you what we're doing and how we're doing it and walk you around the property and anything you want, we will open it up.
A couple last and wrap it up. But on your month-to-month to convincing a tenant who was on month-to-month to now sign a long-term lease, is there some type of enticement given?
Yeah, it gives them location certainty.
Okay.
Again, against some event that's unforeseen, they know that they will have a lease. Our real estate implementation is based on policy decisions that are made by the city. The policymakers change periodically. Other things happen that may change their ideas about their own policies on it. So it gives them, location certainty if they've got a lease in place.
In fact, from my way of thinking, typically long-term leases favors the tenant in a way, right? Because these are often small businesses, and if they go out of business, you're not going to be able to, you might be able to come after them for a little bit of money, but not a lot. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the lease, often the lease benefits the tenant more than the city in some ways.
It depends on the lease.
Yeah,
it really does. I mean, I've seen long-term leases. You take Fun Factory, for example. The previous operator down there signed that lease. It was a long-term lease at a time, I think it was in the early 70s or something like this, when nobody wanted that. And he was paying, I don't have it in front of me, a ridiculously low amount of money. A couple of $1,000s a month. And was just minting money over the last couple decades that he was down there. So that's an example. At the time, city felt that was a good deal. They probably weren't thinking about percentage rents or whoever the policymakers were, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, weren't thinking that through. What we're always trying to think about is, we talked about this just today, is if something happened to us, okay, or any of the people in the harbor department, could somebody else come in and figure out what we're doing? Could somebody come in and just take over the files, take over, our processes and procedures solid enough so that effectively we're replaceable? We also want deals that are going to look smart 10 years from now.
Yeah, no, I mean, but the whole fun factory is a perfect example of how the lease, a long-term lease, really benefited the tenant and did very little for the city at the time. I mean, you see it typically, and I've been involved with commercial leases certainly, and often the tenant wants the long-term lease, right? Because it benefits them. They know where they're going to be.
Right.
It establishes their, so.
If you got escalators built into it, though, there's also a certain amount of risk that the tenant's willing to take if they sign a long-term lease, that they'll pay those, if the lease is structured right from a landlord standpoint, and you've got built-in either CPI increases or fixed percentages. CPI is probably the safest from a landlord, but it's also the most complex way to go about it. For a larger property, that is what I would do, not for a small property like Pier Plaza. But if it's structured correctly, the tenant will will take on some risk of that rent being disproportionately higher than the market 10 years from now or 15 years from now. So if it's structured right, it'll be just enough for the tenant to say, yeah, we'll take on that extra risk, but the landlord is able to capture the value that tenant brings either in cash flow or foot traffic or something.
Yeah, it's somewhere down the road.
So it's rare nowadays to see some of these leases that were done 40, 50 years ago or even some of the master leaseholds and things like this. Things are much more sophisticated on the city side on how they look at these things.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what the city gets out of these, I mean, I don't, in some way, there's a part of me that says month to month's great, continue.
Well, let me toss this in. Every lease we got down there, except for Beach Life, has got a 12-month termination option.
Yeah, I know.
Built into it.
I know.
So,
and it's killing it.
So when people, I mean, you're in the real estate business. So when people talk about, well, are our rental rates comparable to somewhere else? You show me where a tenant is going to pay market rate if the landlord also has the option to just cancel. You could have a 10-year lease, but if the landlord's got an option to cancel it in 12 months, you show me a tenant that'll say, oh, I'll pay market rate.
Yeah, when does
no, you got to pay. They're going to want a discount off.
When does that go away? Do you know?
No, that's here for the long term until redevelopment opportunities present themselves. So we've got an aging infrastructure out there, and eventually a lot of it needs to be rebuilt. So we want the maximum flexibility to be able to get of our leases if and when we need to.
Yeah, I guess that all comes down to the balance sheet. If it's making enough money right now to continue to support itself, it's okay. But like Brian is mentioning, it does kill you on, that one provision.
You've got to give concessions.
Yeah.
And it's like no tenant, I call it TIs, but that's tenant improvement allowance. That's what a landlord, for the public, that's what the landlord will allow a tenant to spend to build their space out, and the landlord picks up that bill. If you don't have much in tenant improvement dollars to give a tenant, you've got to offset that because they have other choices. You've got to offset that with a lower rental rate. Right. Or better terms or something like that. So it's all a balancing act. And we're always trying to, as I said before, we're always trying to look at these deals from 5 years from now, turn it around and look at what we're doing today. And is that a good deal? We want people down the road after we're all gone or, Greg's retired and Catherine's city manager somewhere or something like that. So we want those people in the future to look back on what we're doing right now, both as a harbor department and from a leasing standpoint. We want them to look at this and go, wow, that was really thought through. That was smart. We're always thinking about it.
And I would always think that somehow figuring out a way to give higher TI so that you could get higher rents, typically that's going to benefit the landlord, the city in this case.
Yeah, your increase, the more dollars out of your pocket, as you know, from a landlord to a tenant, you're picking up a little bit of risk.
Yeah.
And that it takes longer before you hit that net rent positive from doing the deal. So we want low risk. We want flexibility with these termination options. We want happy growing tenants. And it's all a balancing act that I mean, other people can make this determination or not, but I think it's working pretty well.
Okay, so, and sorry for talking for so long. Last simple, silly question. You show mall vacancies doing just wonderful. I thought malls were hurting. In fact, the gallery.
They were a disaster. They're converting them. A good example is the Palos Verdes Promenade. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. You go up there, it's all doctor's offices, it's all lab offices, it's physical therapy offices. It's not the typical retail mall is pretty dead and dying. As you know, a lot of these big retail centers are being converted to other uses and housing and.
Yeah, but to me, that's the death of the mall. Then I mean, the vacancy grew so high in the mall, it fell over dead, right? And then they converted it to something else, and it's no longer a retail mall. I mean, just my way of looking at it.
I think they call it a mall just because of the physical structure. It's a mall, but a lot of these are turning into housing and professional buildings.
Okay.
I mean, up in Palos Verdes, I mean, people that own the professional buildings thought that they would have a lock on the market forever up there with all the doctors and an aging population and things like this. Well, they weren't thinking about the promenade coming in and saying, hey, we'll start converting this to professional use.
Yeah. Okay, that's all for me. That's interesting, though. Poor Galleria, right? So just like what happened to that with the dropping vacancy rates. Anyway, go ahead.
Thanks. You mentioned 7,000 square feet's available. What's that?
We've got building 105, we've got 996 square feet that's available. We've got 1,010 square feet directly next to where we are, the management leasing office in building 107. Then we've got the first floor, it's 785 square feet in building 115, building 115. It's a little two-story building. Okay, that's going to be what's coming to council next month. We got an insurance agency that's moving into that. Then we've got 2,000 square feet that used to be part of Jarriett Technology. They shrank a bit. That's available. And am I missing one? Oh, and then we've got 1,300 square feet in building 121 that actually faces the water. Used to be an architecture firm that was in there.
Okay. In the greater harbor area, how are we doing? Maison Ritz, I know some of this is under master leaseholders. Maison Ritz, Hot Dog on a Stick, the downstairs nightclub.
Sure, downstairs nightclub is full. It's got a nightclub use in there. That was the last remaining vacancy in the Robert Resnick building, which is that landing building that was recently renovated. The HK Pacific leasehold, which is the old Maison Ritz two-story building, and then that single-story structure with like the coffee shop. The coffee shop portion is nearly full, if not full. Obviously, Maison Ritz just has like a law firm on the second story. We're taking a potential leasehold to council in closed session tomorrow night. Obviously, International Boardwalk is full up with the exception of Fun Factory, which we have an RFP out for now. Joe's Crab Shack is empty, but we have...
Fun Factory and the Fun Factory restaurant, that's still closed, right?
Yes, the fish restaurant that was inside Fun Factory.
Yeah,
yes.
Oh, yeah.
That was part of the lease buyout the city did.
Yeah.
So we're actively looking for somebody for that one.
Yeah, so that's open and available. Would that be available now?
Not now because of the construction.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that hit the restaurant too.
We're getting out ahead of that. We're trying to negotiate, get somebody in there. Whoever goes in there is going to need to do quite a bit of TIs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On going back to your stuff, thanks for coming again. The Placer AI stuff is interesting. When you look at that, can you tell what's working down there in the wintertime or on a rainy day? What brings people down?
We can. Just you've got to define what you're really looking for and then start drilling into it. Placer's great, and then it's very sophisticated software. Placer's great in that they'll provide someone to help you structure a report. And they'll do it at no charge if you're buying the software.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how to ask that question. So I was just wondering if between Placer AI and your own intuition, I'm kind of wondering, like, what should we be looking for tenants to get more traffic down there in the middle of January?
They can do what they call a void analysis, where they can take a look at chain retail stores, for example, and where they're all currently located right now, and where there's a void, where there might be an opportunity for them. It's like, think McDonald's or something like this. McDonald's knows to a T, where they need to place, each new potential restaurant. So yes, it's got that capability. We got the license for all of California. So we could take a look at other competing areas. We could take a look at Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach. I took a look at Santa Monica, for example, a few months ago, just to compare their number of visitors, to what we get down here. So there's a lot of things we can do with that data. The analysis I use is, take a software package, take Excel, okay? What percentage of Excel's capabilities do most of us use? A fraction of it. Well, Placer, think of Placer like that. It's got huge capabilities. Part of it is just realizing what it can do, and then having to do it. So it's an ongoing process, as we learn and as we are actually using it. But to answer your question, questions like that can be answered. So when you're looking at a large enough space, former Fun Factory, is an example. Like a void analysis, is something that you can use to target other potential users that are successful in other areas where the demographic that we've got is similar to what they're looking for, so that they can make a determination that they can make that, we'd like to see $1,000 a square foot in sales, or more.
And I can add to that a little bit in that sometimes the built environment dictates the use. Like the Maison Ritz site lends itself to a restaurant because it's completely outfitted with a kitchen and the restrooms and all the health and safety requirements that the LA County requires of you. I view the Fun Factory space as the clear blank slate of anything can go in there. And I think, through this RFP process where we're trying to attract somebody, these developers, these business owners, they're doing that void analysis before they even approach Larry Cosmont to submit something. They're looking at what we want, which is family-friendly, entertainment venue. And we kept that vague on purpose so that they could actually go out and what does that mean to them so they can propose it to us. So I'm expecting those void analysis, at least for the Fun Factory site, to be kind of going through this process.
Thanks. My last question is probably for you. I was digging around at budget stuff online, ahead of this. I was basically trying to figure out if we're doing better this winter than we were last winter with, surf club, cantina, a couple new things, a little more foot traffic, a little better look and feel. What I could find were basically PDFs of the budget. There used to be a budget tool, an interactive budget tool that I don't think is on the website anymore.
I can't speak to the budget tool. I can look into it for you. But when you come to the budget, you're looking at like the final line item.
It was pretty top level.
Whereas, what Mio and Dave and Catherine and I track, we get kind of quarterly reports from all of our master leaseholders that kind of break down all the different businesses and uses.
That's what I was looking for.
How they're doing, which ones qualify for percentage rent, which ones are paying minimum rent. For any given month. Of course, we've got the ones that we manage on Fisherman's Wharf, International Boardwalk. They report directly to us through Concord Property Management. So it's all information we have. So if there's anything you want to see, to Tom's point, we can get it to you.
I was ultimately trying to look at Tidelands and Uplands, and are they doing better this year than they were last year? And even that was digging. I mean, do you just know off the top of your head?
I don't, but I think it's about the same, to be honest with you, if I had to guess. But as it's trending. But if you want to dig into the numbers, it's actually not that complex.
I'll talk to you later. Thanks. Okay. Thanks. Nothing else. Thank you.
Quick,
Thanks for coming.
Sorry, by the way. On master leaseholds, I'm not read one. Maybe I should, but
you should.
I should, yeah. I should go back and look at them.
It
Does
will
the
answer all your
city?
questions.
It will. But does the city care if they have vacancies, depending on how it's structured? I guess we do.
We do, because we get a
Okay.
percentage rent of that. So
You do,
they
okay.
do well, we do well.
Okay. And there's also a floor, basically, that they pay every, okay, I basically got it, but I'll take a look. Thank you.
And it impacts the other tenants around it also. So you get a big vacancy. For example, Gil, going back to former Fun Factory, as soon as we get the right person in there, it is going to benefit everybody.
Oh, yeah.
It's so big. And if they're making money, if they make the determination they can make money, once they get up and going, it is going to benefit all the tenants down there, which is going to really increase what the city gets from all the other tenants vis-a-vis the percentage rent. So we're going to get not just the Fun Factory uptick from an economic standpoint, we're going to see all the rest of our tenants have their boats rise also.
That's right. And to your point, a vacancy that, a number of vacancies from a master leasehold costs us in other ways. Even,
Right.
But I get it. Thank you.
It's all very dynamic. I mean, what I like to tell people with all these numbers and things like this, I mean, nobody can predict the future. I mean, these are really a look in the past and a prediction of the future based on our best analysis. It could all change. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen economically on a national level or politically, or, I mean, we just don't know. But this is our best guess at what we're looking at going forward, and also where we stand right now with all of our tenants and the rent. And some of my own thoughts about where we want to go with rental rates for our retail tenants in regards to that base rent. We want to wean. We would like to have our existing tenants all paying percentage rent, and those ones that ultimately fall by the wayside that are just paying base rent, we want to replace those with guaranteed percentage rent tenants.
Okay. But it seems like office people, office tenants would have a hard time with that, maybe, but I don't know, we'll have to talk after.
Well, yeah, and happy to. Yeah, office leases are just different. I mean, that's just, it's a whole different dynamic.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
Anybody from the public? Is anybody online?
There is no one in Zoom, no e-comments, but we do have a comment card from Maria Larissa Yasol.
Thank you, Brian.
Good evening, everyone. Take two. I believe you have about $94 million total capital improvement funding all throughout. So look into that. So let me get back into what's important to me. For all of us, not just me, excuse me. Housing, the owner, let me get back to, let's see. Oh, sorry. Okay. Nope. Basically, development is coming. We have large development projects, including up to 2,700 rental units. They're no longer hypothetical. What matters now is how this growth affects King Harbor, our infrastructure, and the long-term stability of our city's generational wealth. Historically, Redondo Beach has been strongest when residents are also title holders, property owners. Ownership creates stability during times of change. Title holders invest long-term, participate civically, and pay property taxes and direct support infrastructure, public safety, and harbor maintenance. They have a vested interest in protecting King Harbor as a working harbor and public asset, not just real estate. As development accelerates, a renter-dominant model creates structural risk, especially at this scale. High turnover reduces long-term stewardship at the very moment we need it most. Infrastructure use infrastructure use increase, but reinvestment often does not keep pace. The financial upside flows to asset managers while the city absorbs the operational burden. Basically, do we want to make $2 million a year? Or, do we want to lose $2 million a year? Or do we want to make $15 million a year? And this is long term.
Time.
For the harbor.
Motion to extend for 1 minute.
Second. No, you had a motion to
You
extend.
can extend for 1 minute.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you. For the Harbor Commission, this matters. Increased residential density affects harbor access. Access parking, safety services, and economic health of waterfront tenants. These are not abstract impacts. They fall squarely within this commission's responsibility to protect the harbor's long-term function and public benefits. So please keep your coastal land. Thank you.
Oh, I have a couple questions for you before you
Yes.
hop down. So I wasn't, and maybe I'm missing, is there a development that's been approved that's no?
Not that I'm aware of.
We don't currently have anything coming up where we're building or apartment buildings or anything like that within the harbor
The harbor's completely either open space recreational or commercial.
or commercial, right?
You are adjacent to it.
Oh, yeah, so,
It's in your border.
So you're talking about the SCE?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the AES
Yes.
site?
oh,
Okay.
the AES site,
Yes.
thank you. I didn't.
So that will bring in approximately about, just a little less than 10% of population increase. So that's going to affect not only, amenities, activities. And by the way, I'm a real estate by profession, but my interest is in community development. In terms of I can't even put my mind on this rental thing. I've lived, worked, and played in Redondo Beach since I was 13 years old. Yes, I played at that fun factory. Lost a lot of my allowance playing Miss Pac-Man, and I loved it. We had so much fun. Now, what's international? It's, branding, it's not branding. We have a full history here. May I have everyone's attention to that seal behind you?
We actually have
That's
to
a
cut this
governmental
off soon,
seal.
so.
That gives us governance, and so we need to keep ourselves.
Greg, do we have an update?
Stay together.
What is going on?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. What is going on with the AES? Right? It's still in flux,
It's
right?
still locked up
It's
in
complete-
litigation.
I mean, there's people that would like to turn it into a park, right? I mean, right now, and
Yeah, I'm sorry you've had your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
anyway, so I don't know if you have any more information on it right now. I know that
Maybe we stay on topic for now, and then during the director's report, we can
Never
kind of
mind.
come up with questions.
you so much.
Yeah.
Motion to receive and file the,
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Thank you again, Brian. That was very informative.
Thank you.
Okay, item M, liaisons report.
Yes, I'll give a few updates on some of the other projects the department's working on. We are planning the ribbon cutting ceremony for the sea bass grow pens for the last week of January, just triple checking a few calendars. We are working on a bunch of grants right now. So we have our $1.4 million grant from HUD to fund the Basin 3 slips. So we're working on getting that RFP out for a contractor and also the environmental review documents that we'll need to have completed before we can kind of start any project down there. We did release the RFP for the LCP amendment, which is funded by a Coastal Commission grant. That was released in mid-December, and we're accepting proposals through the end of the month. And then we are also working on, we receive the fully executed SAVE grant agreement around the holidays. And we already met with the marina managers in early January to kind of kick off the next round of that funding. So we do have the go-ahead to start using that money. And they all know that, and they're all excited. So we're excited about that. The boat launch, the grant application is due on February 2nd. So the consultants are heads down, getting everything ready and going and working closely with us so we can answer any last minute questions so we can get the application submitted. And then their environmental team is also working on the technical studies for CEQA at the same time. The courtesy dock, we do finally have that space available for our courtesy dock, but we are kind of doing some preparations to kind of get it underway for the public, updating some signage, looking at the lighting and things like that. So we hope to unveil it in the next month or two. And then the breakwater repair project, we're working with the Army Corps and their contractor to get a meeting scheduled with stakeholders so we can go through the project specifics. So we're looking at some dates at the end of January or early February. And then looking ahead to next month, we will have our public safety officers coming to provide a brief report to you all, and that'll be on February 9th.
Start down there, Roger, do you have anything?
Yeah, follow up on the breakwall repair. Last month, we were saying repairs could be March to June, as early as Feb if weather allows. So is it still potentially happening for 6 months this year, or?
Yep, it's still the same schedule. They've just been working on a few things on their end and getting it going.
Cool. I don't have any other comments on the liaison's report, but just general comments. The waterfront looked great for the boat parade. Great. Thank you guys so much for all the work, all the support to that. I don't know who got the trees lit, but man, it looked great. And I heard there was a big crowd there. So
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, you guys are doing actually great stuff. What happens if you slip on the boat launch? I mean, if you have February 2nd as the date, what if it passes?
Can't.
Okay,
No,
so
it's
you're
not an
actually-
option.
Hopefully you get like a buffer built in there somewhere, right? That they're actually.
Correct. Yeah, our target date's well before
Okay,
February
good.
2nd.
Yeah, that's all I have got. Yeah, perfect.
I was just curious, the Fun Factory RFP, when is that deadline? When will things start coming in?
It's end of January.
Okay.
So essentially, we'll be gathering all the proposals that we got. We'll be going to closed session to talk about the pros and cons of each one. We're not eliminating any. We're going to present all of them to council so they get the big picture of who submitted, and hopefully they'll choose someone that we can negotiate with.
I don't know if you're allowed, at the February 9th meeting, will you be able to share like how many responses you got?
Sure.
Yeah, cool.
No specifics, but I can give a number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so a couple of questions. First of all, just following with the Fun Factory, maybe I missed it. When do we expect that we'll actually be able to make the Fun Factory available for leasing? I know we're in the RFP, but when will somebody actually be able to move in there?
Well, I mean, personally, I think they've got about 6 months to 9 months worth of tenant improvements that are going to be needed. And those estimates and what it'll cost will go into the negotiations of the lease itself. So they'll have to do some proactive kind of estimates to understand what they're tackling. Of course, what type of tenant improvements are dictated on what type of use is going in there. So I would say conservatively, we're going to get the parking structure project completed in the next 3 to 5 months. I expect us to be locked up in negotiation by then, and then another probably 6 months of building permits, and then another 8 to 9 months of construction. It'll be a little while.
By the end of 2027, we should expect somebody in there and operating.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Okay, one other question I asked about this well over a year ago now, and I'm not expecting to receive a different answer, but I will ask anyway. The drain project on Yacht Club Way that's been suspended due to the bankruptcy of the contractor. Any update on that?
None. It's in a litigation matter at this point.
have anything. Thank you.
I'm good, been answered.
Excellent. All right, if there's no other, oh, yeah,
One, go back. Are we on N or M?
we're on M1.
Okay, I'll hold it.
All right. Excellent, okay. Now we are on N.
I had one thing. Will you be able to share next time maybe what the parking, you alluded to some parking concessions or arrangements while the Army Corps is occupying some of the area?
Like temporary construction yard
Yeah, will
type
you be able to
things.
share what that is next time?
If we have it,
Stakeholders?
go ahead.
Yeah, I think they're still kind of finalizing the details on that, so we don't actually have that yet, which is why we haven't
Yeah.
gone ahead and scheduled that meeting with the stakeholders yet, but they know we're waiting it, so we should have an update, I would hope, next month, but we keep pressing them for those details.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? All right, well, if there is no other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
Well, and the commission member items, I don't know if this is part of, I cannot make the February meeting though, but I'll let you know. But
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, now.
yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody to be opposed.
You were having such a good time.
I was.